Good morning, everyone. This is Brad Lewis, Vice President of Sales at Premier Marketing. Today on the phone we have Sandy Petrie, with Sales Director with United of Omaha. And Sandy is going to be covering the Index Universal Life products brought to us by United of Omaha. She's going to get into understanding the mechanics of the products and how they work. So we're happy to have Sandy on the call today. So Sandy, thanks for joining us, and I'll turn the call over to you.
Well, thank you, Brad. It's my pleasure to be here. As Brad mentioned, most people, or some people, are just afraid of universal life because they think they're too complicated. They just don't understand them. So that's the purpose of the presentation today. As Brad said, I'll be reviewing the mechanics of how Index Universal Life policies work, and then I'll talk a little bit about specifically our two products and how they work. So let's go ahead and get right into it here. Index Universal Life products, they have gained a lot of popularity in the industry, and for really good reason. They provide the client with life insurance protection and the potential for greater growth. So this presentation, as I mentioned, is going to cover the mechanics of Index Universal Life and then our two products. So first off, let's talk about what an Index Universal Life, or IUL, policy is. It is just like the traditional universal life insurance policy, with one exception. Instead of crediting a fixed rate of interest, the interest rate credited to the policy is calculated based on the performance of a market index. So what is a IUL policy designed to do? Well, just like the traditional universal life policies, it's first and foremost designed to provide life insurance protection. It pays a lump sum of money to the insured's beneficiary when the insured dies. The second thing it does is build an accumulation value. As you look at IUL policies in the industry, they're generally designed as either accumulation-focused policies or protection-focused policies. The client's goal can be a combination of the two. However, insurance companies typically design the underlying policy charges to work better for one or the other. And as their name suggests, our accumulation-focused product name is Income Advantage, and our protection-focused product is Life Protection Advantage, IUL. So how does the policy actually work? In basic terms, the client pays premium, and a portion of that premium goes to paying for the life insurance protection. This includes the cost of insurance charges and monthly charges. The rest of the premium goes towards building an accumulation value. The accumulation value is the amount in the policy that earns interest, either at a fixed rate or at a declared monthly rate or an index rate that is based on the performance of the market index. So there is also a cash value. So this is the amount of money that the client can access from their policy through policy loans or withdrawals. It's important to understand the distinction between the accumulation value and the policy's cash value. The accumulation value is the amount that earns the interest, whereas the cash value is what the client has access to. So in years where there's no surrender charges or no outstanding loans, these values are relatively similar. However, in years where there are surrender charges or outstanding loans, these two values can be significantly different. Now that you know how an IUL fundamentally works, let's talk about how the growth in the policy can be used. On a protection-focused policy, it's primarily to keep the death benefit protection in force for the longest period of time possible. On an accumulation-focused product, It's also used to keep the death benefit protection in force, but clients may also plan to take loans or withdrawals from their policy in the future to help pay for their children's college expenses, to help supplement their retirement income, or for any other reason that the client chooses. And an overview of how the IUL policy works wouldn't be complete without talking about the 3 potential tax advantages. First, the amount of money that is paid to the client's beneficiary at death is received by the beneficiary income tax-free. Second, the cash value that accumulates in the policy grows tax-deferred. And third, when the client chooses to take a distribution, the distributions are generally received income tax-free. Up to now, everything we've talked about on the IUL policy works the same as it would for a traditional fixed index universal life policy. But as we mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation, where things get different is when we start talking about how the interest is credited and calculated and credited. So in this section, we'll talk about the indexed interest credits on an IUL policy and how they work. First, it'd be helpful to understand a few key terms. The first term that you'll hear a lot about is segment. A segment is a portion of the client's indexed account that may be credited indexed interest based upon the performance of the Standard & Poor's 500. Since the client can pay premium as often as a monthly, a policy may contain up to 12 segments per index crediting strategy at any given time. New segments are created on the 10th of each month, and each segment ends or matures 1 year after it begins. So if the segments are created on the 10th of the month, a client may wonder what happens to their money if they pay their premium on the 1st of the month. So when this happens, their money is put into a short-term holding account where it earns the same interest as the fixed account until the next segment start date. At that time, the money is moved to the appropriate indexed account. So the next 3 terms will be important to understand when we talk about how indexed interest rates is calculated. These terms are participation rate, cap rate, and the floor. The participation rate is the percentage of the overall index return that is used in calculation of the indexed credit. The cap is the maximum index interest rate that can be credited, and the floor is the minimum index rate that can be credited. The participation rate, cap, and floor are declared by the company monthly, but once a segment is created, these rates are guaranteed until the next segment matures 12 months later. The client can choose among crediting strategies that have different participation rates and caps. However, all United of Omaha IUL policies have the same floor of 0%. This can provide the client a little extra comfort since they know that even if the market fails in a particular year, they are guaranteed that the minimum rate credited to their policy will never be less than 0. So they're never going to lose money, they just might not get an interest credited for that segment. The 3 crediting strategies available include a 100% participation rate with a mid-range cap, a higher participation rate, which is generally higher than 100%, and a lower cap participation rate that has something less than 100% participation rate and no cap whatsoever. So all 3 of these index strategies use an annual point-to-point crediting strategy. So all this means is that the index change percentage measures the change from the starting S&P 500 at the beginning of the segment to the Standard & Poor's 500 value at the end of the segment. Once a year is completed, the starting value for the next segment year resets to the current S&P 500 value. And I'll show you some examples of this coming up here. So another commonality that all strategies have is based on their index interest on the same market index, so the Standard & Poor's 500. So although the crediting strategies are the same for both the United of Omaha IUL products, their participation rates and caps may differ by product. The current participation rate and cap options can be found on the current life interest rate section on our sales professional access. So with all three of these index strategies, the actual calculation of the index interest is the same. So first, you calculate the annual change in the index. Then you multiply that change by the participation rate. And finally, you apply the floor and the cap rates. So here's an example of how the interest would be credited. Okay, so you have a client, John. He chose to have all his money allocated to a crediting strategy that had a 100% participation rate and an 11% cap. If the beginning Standard & Poor's value has $2,150 and the ending Standard & Poor's value has $2,000, the change is calculated and then multiplied by 100% participation rate. The result is 7.5%. So since this is higher than the 0% floor, so 7.5 is higher than the floor of 0, and it's less than the 11% cap, the full 7.5% is credited to the index segment. If John had elected a crediting strategy with, say, 140% participation rate and an 8.5% cap, as you can see here, what would be credited would be 10.5%. Oops, sorry, they have a cap of 8.5. So what would be credited would be 8.5%. So it's higher, 10.5 is higher than the cap on this strategy, so it would be credited at 8.5%. Your clients may also wonder why we use the Standard & Poor's 500. Well, it is the most commonly used index among IUL policies in the industry, and the S&P 500 represents a weighted average of how 500 of the largest stock companies who trade common stock on the New York Stock Exchange have performed. So it's a really good representation of the U.S. stock market, and this value is easy for clients to find if they want to be able to calculate their own index interest. So it's important for your clients to understand that although the index interest credit rate is based on the performance of the S&P 500, the accumulation value is not actually invested in the stock market. The index performance is only used as a measuring tool in order to calculate how much index interest will be credited to the policy. So now that you know a little bit about the crediting strategies that are available and how the index interest is calculated, you may wonder which one is right for your client. Well, there's some suggestions, but they're no means definite. So here's just a few broad guidelines about which client would be best for each crediting strategy. So the 100% participation rate with a mid-range cap is generally for clients who believe the index will perform at a average or slightly above average rate. The higher participation rate with a lower cap is generally for clients who believe the index will perform below the cap or below the index average. The lower participation rate with the uncapped strategy is generally for clients who believe the market will outperform the cap. And the fixed account is generally for clients who may not be comfortable with allocating all of their money to an index crediting strategy. So your clients can allocate amongst any of the strategies and have the option to reallocate their money at each segment maturity date. So they don't have to pick one strategy. They can have like 50% in one strategy and the other 50% in another strategy. As long as it equals 100% of the money that they're putting in, they can switch it up, do whatever they want. Now, you can also do your own real-time historical analysis with your clients using our client-approved look-back calculator. It's available on our website, discoveriul.com. And this calculator can assist you in helping your clients assess the index interest rate potential of the crediting strategies that are available. So take advantage of that. There's a lot of resources on that website, discoveriul.com. So with an IUL sale, you must provide your client with an illustration. So this illustration uses a variety of hypothetical interest rate scenarios. So your clients may ask you if their policy will perform as illustrated. And, the short answer is no. The illustrate assumes hypothetical rates that's consistently credited to the policy in all years. In the real world, the rate credited to the policy will fluctuate. Clients will have good years and bad years. The maximum rate that can be used to illustrate takes into account how the index has performed over a look-back period. So this period averages the annual return for all possible 25-year periods from the most 65-year calendar. But as we know, past performance is not always an indicator of the future. So if the client's policy ends up performing better, their policy may have more flexibility. The client could reduce their premiums or even stop paying their premiums at some point. They also have more cash value that can be taken as loans or withdrawals. If the policy doesn't perform as well as it was initially illustrated, the client may need to make adjustments to their policy. So they may need to increase their premiums or lower their face amount or adjust their expectations as to the amount that they will be able to take from the policy via loans or withdrawals in the future. There are two things that can help set yourself up for success with the IUL clients, and that's setting up a follow-up conversation on an IUL policy. So first, let your clients know that you'll be scheduling policy reviews every 1 to 2 years. So during this review, you can meet with the client to review their policy to make sure it's continuing to perform as they expected. It's much easier to make small adjustments over time, if necessary, than to wait until a policy may be in jeopardy of lapsing. So the Home Office can assist with these policy reviews by running enforced illustrations showing how the policy is projected to perform based on what has actually happened to the policy. And secondly, prepare them for their annual statements. For life insurance policies, the insurance company is required to send an annual statement the day prior to the anniversary date. However, since the index interest for the initial segment is credited based on the S&P 500 value as of the anniversary date, your client will not have any interest credited until after the statement is mailed. So it's a little catch-22. We have to mail it a day before the anniversary date. However, no interest will be credited until the anniversary date. So just prepare your clients for that. It could, lead them to questions. So just let your clients know that that when you deliver the policy, that this will occur, and that don't be alarmed. But after the anniversary date, the client can log into the Customer Access Center, or they can contact the home office if they want, and we can give them what that interest crediting rate is. Or they can just calculate it themselves if they know, if they can look up the Standard & Poor's 500. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about our two products specifically that we have available. So Income Advantage IUL, this is the cash accumulation product that we have available. As I mentioned, death benefit protection, potential for cash value that they can use later on in life to help supplement whatever they're needing, college education, retirement, or other emergencies. So the ideal client for an accumulation-focused IUL product is between 30 and 55 years old. That typically allows the client to have at least 15 years before they need to start taking distributions from their policy. This time frame gives the policy time for potential growth, and it also gets past the initial 14-year surrender charge period. So many clients who are contributing to an accumulation-focused product policy are those who have maxed out other employee-sponsored retirement benefit vehicles and are looking for additional tax-favored ways to save for retirement. So when a client purchases an IUL policy, the client pays their premium, and part of it goes to paying for the death benefit and the policy costs, and then the other part goes towards building that cash value. So the more the client contributes, the more growth potential the policy has. So typically on an accumulation-focused IUL, the client's premium is determined based on what the client can afford to contribute, okay? So you're overfunding this policy. You're paying more premium than is needed to keep the policy in force, so you get a greater cash value potential. And then once you know the premium the client is able to contribute, you will typically specify that as a premium amount on our WinFlex, which is the quoting software, and you will run a max funded premium solve. You will also typically illustrate these cases using death benefit option 2, which means that the policy has an increasing death benefit. Now, by doing this, it allows the most premium to go towards building the cash value while also ensuring that the policy does not become a modified endowment contract and lose its tax-favored status. So since one of the client's goals will be future potential income, you'll also typically want to illustrate a distribution scenario. So this will generally be illustrated as all index loans or by taking withdrawals to basis and then loans. So once you start illustrating distributions, you'll also generally want to make sure that the client stops making premium payments and switches from death benefit 2 to a level death benefit. Now, doing this will help the client minimize their future cost of insurance charges. So those are just a few little tricks. And even though the illustration can be customized for your client's unique needs, IUL illustrations generally show distributions being taken out for, say, 20 or 25 years. For example, you might want to show what the projected distribution may be if the client starting distributions from, say, age 65 to 85 to supplement their retirement income. And when you solve for distributions, you'll want to keep in mind that the policy should not lapse. If the policy lapses, the client could have substantial tax liability. But there is a feature that's designed to help prevent the policy from lapsing, and it's called the Lapse Guard Rider. And it's automatically included with all policies with issue ages less than 75. So again, this rider is going to prevent the policy from lapsing while they're taking distributions to avoid any potential tax issues. So let's look at a case study that actually puts actual members to numbers to the funding and the distribution scenarios that we discussed. So here we have Andrew. Andrew is a male, age 40, in good health. He currently contributes to a max to his employer-sponsored plan, but he's looking for additional ways to accumulate growth so he can use to supplement his retirement income. He has an additional $500 per month that he would like to put towards his IUL policy, and this requires him to have a minimum face amount of $153,375. When we calculate the policy's future values at a hypothetical rate of 6.5%, we are looking at a projected cash value of $315,000 at age 65, and then a death benefit of $468,000 plus at age 65. So at that point, he switches from death benefit option 2 to option 1 and solve for 20 years of distribution. This results in an income tax-free distribution of $27,343 per year through age 85. When you add up the accumulative premiums paid over the 25 years, the client has contributed $150,000. And when you calculate the projected distributions over 20 years, the accumulated distributions would equal $546,860. And that's more than the that is like $396,860 more in distributions than the client paid in premiums. Plus the client has a death benefit. So that's the beauty of these particular policies. I mean, they have that ability to grow substantially over the course of time. So how does the policy have the potential to get this growth? Our Income Advantage uses a simple, straightforward performance design. The index interest credited to the policy is, again, based on the S&P 500, and again, it uses that annual point-to-point method. So instead of investing in fancy crediting strategies and multiple index options, we use the straightforward strategy, the one that's most straightforward for you to understand and for your clients to understand. So by basing the performance on the S&P 500 index, the client gets greater growth potential than a traditional fixed UL policy. In addition to upside potential, the interest rate is also protected by a downside floor. So this means that even if the S&P goes down, your clients will not lose their money. So when choosing a crediting strategy, Income Advantage offers 3 participation rates, caps, plus a fixed rate account that functions like a typical UL policy. So policyholders can allocate their account values and future premiums across any of these options. Here are the participation rates and caps options for each of the 3 available index interest crediting strategies on the Income Advantage IUL. So 100% participation rate, the cap is 11.5. Option 2 is 140% participation rate with a 8.5 cap. And then you have a 65% participation rate with no cap. In addition to looking at the accumulation values, when selecting an IUL, it's also important to look at the loan provisions since they could significantly impact the policy's performance and the income potential. So once the client starts taking distributions, With United of Omaha's Income Advantage IUL, we offer two types of loans, a standard fixed policy loan and an index loan. Currently, our Income Advantage IUL has an index loan charge of 4%. That's one of the lowest charges on an index loan in the industry. And to help your clients ease their minds, we also guarantee that the highest rate we'll ever charge on an index loan will never exceed 6%. Many companies don't set a limit on the rate the company can charge, so this allows them to set it as high as they would like, which can leave the client's IUL susceptible to additional risk. So here's an illustration that helps show how index loans work on Income Advantage IUL and demonstrate the potential benefit of an index loan. So with an index loan, the insurance company typically credits the loan amount with the same interest rate being credited on the non-loan policy values. So this credit rate is based on the performance of the product's underlying index. The company also charges a declared interest rate on the loaned amount. If the interest rate credited to the policy is higher than the rate the company is charging, the client can actually have a gain on their loan amount. So in this illustration, we show the net gain or net cost of an index loan that has a charge of 4%, assuming 4 different hypothetical index interest crediting scenarios. So as long as their policy earns at least 4%, the client will have a gain on their loaned amount. So you might be wondering what happens if your client's policy doesn't perform as well as the client hoped it does. Well, this is where United of Omaha's guaranteed refund option rider comes in. Income Advantage is the only IUL in the market that offers this feature. This rider provides an additional layer of protection, especially in an unpredictable market. Should the index not experience positive growth, the policy owner has the option to surrender their policy during one of 7 60-day windows, and their premiums will be paid back. So up to 50% at the end of year 15, and up to 100% at the end of year 20, all the way through year 25. And there's no questions asked. They just surrender the policy and we'll refund their premium. This is a no-cost rider. It's built into the policy, so they're not paying extra for this. It's built in. Another selling point of the Income Advantage IUL is the built-in accelerated death benefit rider for terminal and chronic illness. So these riders are available at no additional cost and are included with no additional underwriting. So these riders give the policyholder early access to a portion of their death benefit. This can help cover long-term care costs, medical bills, or other expenses should they become ill. Now, Mutual of Omaha, you get all of this from a company that's strong, stable, and secure, and we have consistently earned high marks with the rating agencies such as AM Best, Moody's, Investor Services, and Standard & Poor's. Okay, so let's talk about when it comes to protecting your clients. Today they need, strong accumulation value potential that may be turned into an income stream, and that's exactly how our indexed universal life works. Now that's the Income Advantage protection. So let's talk about the Life Protection Advantage IUL policy. So this product, very similar, still based on the Standard & Poor's 500, but this is protection focused. So it's focused on providing your clients with that long-term death benefit. When the clients are looking for the death benefit protection, they typically want a policy that's going to last a lifetime. But as you know, a fully guaranteed policy can be expensive. So with the Life Protection Advantage, most clients will want to pay at least the premium that will guarantee their coverage for the long-term no-lapse protection period. This premium level is available to insureds issue ages 0 to 75, and by paying this premium, their coverage will be guaranteed until the insured's age 85. The long-term no-lapse protection premium also happens to be the same as the target premium. So it's important to know that the policy also has a short-term no-lapse protection period available. This is the minimum initial premium that can be paid at issue. This premium guarantees coverage for 10 years up to issue age 75 and to age 85 for insureds age 76 through 80, and for 5 years for insureds age 81 and above. It's important to remember, though, that if your client doesn't want to start out paying the long-term no-lapse premium, they cannot pay more to get long-term protection later. So you really need to illustrate this to pay at least the long-term no-lapse premium. And what happens when you do that is by paying the long-term no-lapse premium, it provides a guarantee to that 85. So it is a meaningful guarantee. So for most clients who are age 60 and under at issue and are of average health, the long-term no-lapse protection period will take them up to or even beyond their life expectancy at issue. So here's a chart that shows the life expectancy at issue of a male and a female and how their life expectancy is compared to the long-term care no-lapse protection. So the long-term no-lapse protection. So if the insured outlives their life expectancy, the death benefit coverage may be extended beyond the long-term no-lapse protection period as long as the policy surrender value is significant to cover the monthly deductions. So for most clients, paying the long-term care no-lapse protection premium will generally take the policy to age 120 based on the non-guaranteed assumptions and a hypothetical illustrated rate of at least 4.5%. But what happens to if the policy doesn't perform at a rate that's over 4.5%? The better the index performs, the longer the policy may last based on the non-guaranteed assumptions. But even at a more conservative rate, you'll find that the coverage typically lasts for a meaningful number of years. So this slide shows how the long-term no-lapse protection premium would last if the policy performed at a more conservative rate of 4%. So even at 4%, the policy carries to age 103 on a non-guaranteed basis. So if you take a look at this chart, you'll see how our long-term care no-lapse protection period compares to other carriers' protection-focused IUL products, as well as how long the death benefits are projected to last on a 4 and a 4.5 and a 5.5 hypothetical rate. So at United of Omaha, our premiums are competitive, and we offer strong no-lapse guaranteed periods. So since Life Protection Advantage is a protection-focused product, your client may want more certainty at their death benefit will last longer. Okay? So even if the policy performed at a more conservative rate, let's take a look at our client. We're going to call this client Chris. So Chris is age 50 years old. He's in good health. He has a need for $500,000 in death benefit protection. His parents are still in great health, and his grandparents and great-parents lived well into their 90s. So also paying his long-term care no-lapse premium guarantees his coverage will last to age 85 and is projected to last until 120 with over $1.8 million in cash value at age 120 based on a 5.5% crediting rate. So he wants even more certainty that the policy will last as long as he does. So there's a couple of ways to go about this. One option is to show Chris how long his coverage would last if he paid a higher premium amount. For example, he could simply take the long-term no-lapse protection premium that was calculated by the illustration software and multiply that by 5 or 10% more and show the client how long that would last at a more conservative rate of 4%. In this scenario, a 5% increase in premium would carry Chris's policy to age 105 at a 4% illustrated rate, and a 10% increase would take Chris to age 120 at a 4% illustrated rate, and he would have over $705,000 in projected cash value at age 120. So you could also do a reverse solve for Chris and determine the premium necessary to carry the policy to age 120 based on a more conservative rate of 4%. In this specific scenario, that will result in a premium of $5,893. So by paying a little extra amount of premium, if the index does perform well, his policy will have extra accumulation. So this extra growth can offer him more options in the future. So in Chris's case, as he gets older, if he sees that his actual policy performance is better than what he originally projected, he has the option to use the policy's accumulation value to pay for his monthly policy charges. As long as the surrender value is positive, this gives him the flexibility to reduce or even possibly stop paying premiums. He also has cash value that he can access through loans or withdrawals to help supplement retirement income for emergency expenses. One other feature that needs to be aware of is the catch-up provision. So the Life Protection Advantage policy allows the client to catch up and restore their long-term guarantees at any point during this short-term no-lapse protection period, as long as the policy hasn't lapsed. So it's important to remember that in order to do this, the client must pay at least the long-term no-lapse protection premium when they first purchase the policy. So we talked about the potential for growth. This policy has different participation rates, well, the same participation rates almost as the Income Advantage, and different caps. So this one has 100% participation rate with a 9.5% cap, 140% participation rate with a 7.5 cap, and a 55% participation rate with no cap. And again, the floors on these are 0. So again, they have multiple options when they're choosing this policy. So since this protection-focused policy, you may be wondering how the long-term no-lapse protection compares to just a fully guaranteed GUL. So let's take a little look at a little case study here. So in this case, our client Jack is 40 years old and has $500,000 life insurance need. It's important to him that the death benefit lasts as long as he does. So Jack can pay approximately $3,500 to $3,750 annually for a fully guaranteed GUL policy. By paying his premiums every year, he would guarantee coverage to last a lifetime, so to age 120. In comparison with a Life Protection Advantage IUL policy, he could pay the long-term no-lapse premium of $3,475. This guarantees his coverage to last until 85, which is beyond his current life expectancy of 78.5. At a projected interest rate of 5.5%, based on a non-guaranteed assumptions, this premium results in a death benefit protection that lasts to age 120, with just over $2 million in cash remaining. So that is huge when you're talking about these IUL policies. And then in addition to also being more affordable than a GUL policy, an IUL has more potential to accumulate the cash value. That means Life Protection Advantage also offers Jack additional opportunities. So if his needs change, or if a different type of life insurance policy is better to meet Jack's needs in the future, he has that surrender value that can be 1035 exchanged into a new policy. Assuming Jack is still insurable, since GUL policies do not typically accumulate much cash value, there's little opportunity to 1035 exchange into a different policy in the future or to access the cash value for emergencies. And if Jack's policy performs better than what he originally projected, he also has the option to use the policy's cash value to pay for his monthly policy charges as long as the surrender value is positive. And if Jack needs access to cash to help pay for his children's college education, help supplement his retirement income or other emergencies, he can take that loan or withdrawal from the policy's cash value. Similar to the income advantage, this life protection advantage also has the accelerated rider for terminal and chronic illness. It also has that guaranteed refund option rider in which he can get back either 50% of his premium or 100% of the premium, just like the other policy. So the target client for this, it really is for somebody who's looking for a long-term death benefit need, such as income replacement or wealth transfer or estate planning. And when looking at the ideal client profile, it's suited for clients who want to lock in a death protection that's guaranteed for a meaningful number of years, but not at a higher cost that's associated with a fully guaranteed universal life policy. The client understands the additional years of death benefit protection they need beyond the no lapse guaranteed period may be extended to on a non-guaranteed basis. They want that potential for growth more so than a traditional fixed interest universal life policy can offer, and they're comfortable with their interest rate being based on the performance of the index market, and they desire the policy with flexibility in the future. And that's exactly what this product does. So I hope that helps explain how index universal lives work, and specifically how our two products work and where they might fit with your clients. Keep in mind, what I did not mention is that we recently, in fact July 1st, added a long-term care rider that could be added to these policies at an additional cost. It is a traditional 7702B long-term care rider that will cover nursing home, home health care, respite care, and a number of other benefits too. So if you're out there looking around at this product, make sure that you look for that long-term care rider as well if your clients desire to add that to their coverage. Okay, Brad, I'll turn it back over to you.
Hey, Sandy, thanks so much. That was a lot of great information on Indexed Universal Life. You know, really touched even beyond the basics of the products, actually, getting and diving into the United of Omaha product specifically. The nice thing is this is just the first in a series of webinars that we'll be doing over the next few weeks. So look for an invite actually coming out tomorrow for the next webinar that we're going to be doing next week. And that's going to be really focusing on how these products can really help your clients. And then as Sandy mentioned, the new LTC rider that's coming up, or that's available now to be on this product. So we're actually going to be hosting a webinar on that as well on looks like on September 5th. So there'll be an invite coming out for that also. So again, this is just the beginning, and trying to help your clients find the benefits of indexed universal life products. So we're looking forward to helping you gain a better understanding of the products and work through some cases with your clients as well. So standing by and ready to help you is the Life Team at Premier. As you can see on the screen right now, we have the phone number for that. It's 800-365-8208, and just ask for a traditional life underwriter and our traditional life marketer, and they'll be able to help you out and get you set up and ready to sell the United of Omaha products. So thanks everyone for taking time out of your day to join us on the call today. And Sandy specifically, thank you for taking your time. It was a great wealth of information. We appreciate your help.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks everybody. Have a great day.